Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing? This video is by request. I had some people asking me about what settings for Xbox and the game mode would I recommend on Samsung Q8FN. I already have done this video. I mean, those videos are out there, but apparently some of you can't seem to find them. I don't know why. So I'm going to do this again for those of you who are maybe new to this channel. I'm going to walk you through what my custom picture settings are and what I recommend. Remember, this is my recommendation based on my preference and what I suggest. I use my own two eyes. I don't use any calibrating equipment. I don't believe in that. So just so you understand. All right, so let's go ahead and let's do this. First and foremost, Samsung Q8FN, as you all know, it's a quantum dot television that has quantum dots, these little tiny crystals behind the liquid crystal display LCD, right behind the LCD. And of course you have LED diodes, a third layer behind it that brightens up the TV. And once those LED diodes brighten up, and you know how bright the LEDs are, the light goes through these photons, these little tiny crystals, and they emit a wider spectrum of colors. That's how you get that wider spectrum of colors. You can do this test if you go to the laboratories where they create quantum dots. You can shine a very bright light on it and you'll see just how the color emits in a much wider spectrum. So that's in a nutshell for those of you who don't understand how it works. All right, now I'm not going to go into technical jargon trying to dissect the whole thing. You can learn about that on the Google, just like I can, just like everybody else can, if you truly want to learn. Everything I learn, you can learn. Go to Google and learn it. It's not that difficult. All right, so first thing first, we all know this is a very bright TV. It's a quantum dot. It's 1500 nits. It doesn't go up to 2000 nits. The Q9 goes up to 2000. This goes only up to 1500. You might be able to push it to 1600 maximum, but that's on a certain content. But it's 1500 nits, and that's pretty darn good for a television of this size. And you know, unless you're living in a giant arena where they're playing NBA basketball, you might need maybe 4000 nits. But here, if you're in the apartment or in a house, you know, decent size house, living room, you're good with 1500 nits. Now that out of the way, let's go ahead, let's do this. All right, so first thing first, on your remote control, hit the home button right here and go down to your settings. As you can see, I'm already on the game mode. Just to show you, I'm already on the game mode. The game mode, it's something that you have to turn on, not through picture mode, and I already explained this, but through a general settings. You have to go to general settings and then scroll down to the external device manager, click on it, and then right here you select the game mode. Now the game mode consists of game motion interpretations, where you can actually adjust a motion flow and how much do you want of that judder to be reduced. So you have that option to use the motion flow while you are playing a video game. And you also have a FreeSync available as well with the game mode, and the Xbox One X obviously supports the FreeSync. So you turn it on. I usually keep it on automatic, so that way when you're not using it anymore, when you switch to a movie, when you're not playing a video game and you want to watch the Blu-ray movie on your Xbox, the game mode would automatically turn off. The game mode will only turn on when you are playing a video game. So that's the cool thing about leaving it on automatic. The FreeSync, I keep it on ultimate to get the best possible FreeSync experience. Okay, the FreeSync, basically it keeps the picture more constant and smoother when you're moving around, so that way you don't have any tearing in the video game. You've seen the tearing when you move around left and right in some games. Here, when you turn the FreeSync on, it's kind of like a G-Sync. It really allows you to have a much smoother gaming experience without any tearing, and that's a pretty cool thing. So once you have the game mode turned on, then you go back to your picture settings. Now you go back and you go back to the picture settings. Down here, you go below on the third column and you click expert settings, and you can clearly see where it's highlighted here on the expert settings. It tells you exactly what it has: backlit, brightness, contrast, sharpness, color, tint, all of the above. It's there. So you click on it. Now this should be a standard for anybody who knows anything about the HDR. You understand that you have to have a backlit and a contrast always at the maximum. If you truly want to appreciate what the HDR can do, you have to have a backlit and contrast to maximum. If you're not using HDR, this is optional. You know, this is only if you are using HDR. And I think I mentioned it like gazillions of times. I don't know how many times I have said that on the videos, but apparently some people are just not paying attention for some reason. I don't know. Somehow that's not registering. The HDR requires backlit and contrast in order for you to get that dynamic picture, because that's how it works. That's what it thrives on. It thrives on a backlit of LED lights to be bright and the contrast to be set to maximum, so that way you can utilize that dynamic contrast ratio that HDR produces with the color gamut of that television that has inside. So you always have to have contrast and backlit set to maximum. And the reason I'm repeating this again is so that way people understand as the reason why. And this only applies if you have HDR turned on. If you don't have HDR, it's up to you. It's subjective, you know, depending on your, light, your environment in your room, then you can move it down, up and down, doesn't matter, But when you have the HDR, backlit and contrast always has to be set to maximum. Brightness, always leave it at 0, which is the middle default. Why? Because we already have HDR. You already got the best possible contrast ratio. You already got the best possible levels between your white and black digital levels, so there's no reason for you to be messing around with the brightness. Same thing goes with the gamma. No reason for you to mess around with your gamma or your brightness, okay? Otherwise you're going to be crushing your black digital levels. You're not going to accomplish anything. So keep it here in the middle. Sharpness, you're already running a 4K picture. You got a 4K picture. You got native 4K. You got this game running in a native 4K. But even if it's not running in a native 4K, it doesn't matter. You still have a higher resolution, and that higher resolution will bring a much better detail. I don't care if it's a checkerboard. I don't care if it's dynamic. You're still getting, even if it's a 1800p upscale to 4K, you're still getting a much higher resolution, and you're getting a much better detail, because high resolution brings a detail. The sharpness does not bring the detail. So this should be something that everybody should understand by now, okay? Even though I mentioned this like gazillions of times in my videos, and people still ask me this question, I'm like, well, which part of don't you understand that sharpness doesn't do nothing, jack shit? It just outlines the pixels. It doesn't create a detail. Pixels by pixels, more density of pixels, more numbers of pixels creates more detail. But hey, I digress. You can learn about this. You can Google this. Everything I say here, you can stop the video. You can Google it if you want to fact check me. So fact check me right now and Google it. If you want to fact check me, stop the video. If you want to be a smart ass, stop the video and fact check everything I say. Moving on. Sorry, but I can't be nice about this, because it's agitating and irritating that I have to repeat this like gazillions of times. Either you want to learn something or don't. It's that simple. Moving on. Color. Color has to be at 25. People say, well, why? Because you already got quantum dots. You already have the best possible color accuracy on this television, because I think the DCI-P3, it's It's 97, I think. I think it's 97%. I'm not sure. I think it's 97%. That's how good the DCI-P3 measurement here is in terms of a color. So the spectrum of colors here, it's very good, meaning you're getting the really good color accuracy here. And on the newest Q9 and Q8, you get even better color accuracy. So you got a really great color accuracy here. You got a really good spectrum of colors, also known as wide color gamut. So there's no reason for you to be pushing this color to 30 or 36 or 40 because you want to avoid oversaturation. What's the oversaturation? Oversaturation means bleeding the color. Putting the one can of paint on color on top of another paint of color and oversaturating it. So you want to avoid that. And I have to explain this like in these basic layman terms so that every Joe, everyday Mary out there can understand why you need to avoid oversaturation. Okay, I'm not going to use the technical jogger. I'm just going to do it like this so you understand. Tint, you never touch this. You leave it as it is. Even if you're using a calibrating equipment, you never touch this. I don't care how sophisticated your calibrating equipment is. You always can be offsetting it. Don't do it. Local dimming, of course, you want to use the local dimming. You want to take local dimming advantage of this, so that way you got a little bit of a better contrast ratio, a little bit of a better viewing angle. It's not going to be a picture perfect viewing angle because it's impossible to have that OLED type of a viewing angle, but this is as good as you're going to get as far as the LCD goes. Okay, contrast enhancer is high because we want to squeeze as much of that ratio between our black digital levels and white digital levels to have that nice contrast, that nice dynamic picture. Okay, that's what it's all about, dynamic picture. Even says here, automatically balance the contrast to prevent excessive differences between the bright and dark, meaning your black digital and your white digital levels. HDR mode off, you never use it. This is fake. This is not real. It's just a fake HDR. Don't ever use this. Don't ever use this filter. Seriously, for the love of God. Don't use this filter. You want my advice? Never, ever, 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 never use this filter. It's fake. It's a filter. It's fake. Sorry to use this word, but it's what it is. Color tone, you guys know me. When it comes to games, I use the standard. The standard is with the tone of color that I always use, because standard tone of color gives me that balance between warm and cool, meaning yellow and blue. If you are watching a movie, you can use the warm one, but if you're not watching a movie, then why would you use the warm one? Cool, it's something you can use if you're watching the sports, but standard, it's really a great balance, so that way you can appreciate what the game developers are trying to achieve here, and you can also appreciate what the color gamut of this TV can reproduce. So leave it at standard. And one last thing it's left, it's obviously the white balance, guys. Even if you have top of the line calibrating equipment, this is very tricky. This is where your calibrators are going to spend 6 hours trying to get this correctly, to keep it all at the good point so it's not offsetting. Listen, this is very tricky. Even with the most professional calibrators out there, they're never gonna get this right. Computer's always gonna screw it up here or there, and they're gonna spend hours and hours working on this, and they're never gonna get to that perfect white balance. Listen, I would just leave this alone. Leave it alone. Trust me. Unless you want to pay unless you want to waste your money to these professional calibrators, sit at your home and drink your beer, stare at your wife, and then collect your cash, be my guest. Gamma, this, I never touch this. I always leave it like this. Because if you're moving gamma, all you're doing is you're crushing your black digital levels. So you're not achieving anything. Okay? You can't get that OLED picture perfect contrast ratio because technology behind the TV will not allow it. That's why you have OLED. Okay? That's why you have the option to buy OLED. Okay? And if you're afraid of the burn-in, well, then don't ever buy it. Just stick with the LCD, dude. All right? If you're afraid of a burn-in. So always keep this at the default level. Keep it at 0. And that's that. Leave it like this. And one more thing is the color space settings. Now, normally I would keep it at native. That's my preference, to keep it at native. But for you, I suggest leaving it on automatic. Keep it on automatic, okay? My preference is native. Okay, that's just my shtick. That's my preference. You don't have to use the native. I suggest that you use the auto, but I use the native. But I would suggest that you try to use the native just to see the difference for yourself. Like I said, I use my own 2 eyes. I don't go by the standards. The standards. I use my own 2 eyes. But hey, you want to use the automatic? Go ahead, use the automatic. Okay? And that's it. That's what I recommend. I mean, I don't know if I could have done any better than this. I've done this video like gazillions of times, and people are asking me this constantly. Dude, what are the settings for Q8FN? What are the settings for TCL? I said, don't you watch my videos, man. I got 4,000 plus videos. They're out there. And here you go. You're welcome. Enjoy these settings and try them out. They're free. You don't have to pay anything for it. All right. There you have it. Samsung Q8FN 55-inch QLED TV. Yes. Also coming from a guy that has an OLED as well. Okay. And still doesn't have the burn-in. Because, you know what? You know why? Because I know how to take care of my TVs. I have even this TV over here that I have, the 3D TV, that's from 2013. You know why it's still working? Because I know how to take care of my TVs. Even my LG 3D TV from 2008. I'm sorry, 2009 still works. Do you know why? Because I take care of my TVs. Maybe you should do so too. And your TV will live longer. Have a good one.